The main control room of Vorn Station 7 glowed with red warning lights. Commander Trell stood tall despite his worry, his four-fingered hands gripping the edge of the command console. Through the large viewing window, he watched as another piece of their defense fleet exploded in silent fire against the darkness of space. "Status report," he ordered, his voice steady even as the floor shook beneath them. "3 cycles of power remaining, Commander," said the systems officer. "Our shields are at 20%. 2 more colony ships have escaped, but the rest..." Her voice trailed off. Trell nodded. He understood what remained unsaid. Most of their people would not escape. The Nexus Horde had been hunting the Vorn for nearly a decade, destroying one colony after another. Now only this station remained, their last stronghold orbiting their homeworld. "It is time," Trell decided. "Prepare the emergency signal." His second-in-command, Officer Marn, stepped closer. "Commander, are you certain? Broadcasting on all frequencies will reach." She lowered her voice. "Even the Deathworlders." Trell's silver eyes narrowed. The Deathworlders, those strange species from harsh planets that had produced unnaturally strong, aggressive beings. The Vorn had always avoided them, especially the newest spacefaring species, humans. But now, they had no choice. "We have no other options," he said firmly. "Send the signal." Across the room, Communications Officer Dren worked quickly, preparing the emergency broadcast. "Signal ready, Commander." Trell stepped forward and spoke clearly into the recorder. "This is Commander Trell of the Vorn Collective. Our civilization faces extinction at the hands of the Nexus Horde. We request immediate assistance from any vessels within range. We offer knowledge, technology, and eternal friendship in exchange for aid. Please respond. This is our final distress call." The message shot outward, traveling faster than light through special communication channels that reached across the stars. Jack Wilson was half asleep at his monitoring station on Earth's deep space listening post 12. The graveyard shift was always boring. He sipped his coffee and stared at the endless data streams flowing across his screens. A sudden alert jolted him upright. The computer had detected an unusual signal, not random space noise, but a structured communication. Jack tapped his console, running the signal through the translation matrix. "Holy shit," he whispered as the alien message appeared as text on his screen. An actual alien distress call. This wasn't a drill or a test. Jack's fingers flew across the keyboard, forwarding the message to Earth Defense Command Headquarters. Within minutes, his communication panel lit up. "Wilson, this is General Foster. Tell me everything about this signal." Jack explained what little he knew, the signal's strength, direction, and the basic translation. "Sir, they sound desperate. Whoever they are, they're in real trouble." 3 hours later, Admiral Helen Reed stood before the United Earth Defense Council in their underground chamber beneath New Geneva. The 12 council members sat in a semicircle, their faces serious under the harsh lighting. "This is not just another deep space anomaly," Reed said. "This is first contact with a civilization in peril. How we respond defines humanity's first steps into the galactic community." Councillor Pottle leaned forward. "Admiral, we've barely established our presence beyond our own solar system. Our fleet is limited." "And what if it's a trap?" asked Councillor Lopes. "We know nothing about these Vorn or their enemies." Reed stood straighter. "Our science division has analyzed the signal. The distress is genuine. And the enemy they describe, this Nexus Horde, poses a potential threat to all life, including Earth." The council chamber filled with murmurs and whispered conversations. Finally, the council president raised her hand for silence. "Admiral Reed, if we approve this mission, who would lead it?" "Commander Mason, sir. He's our best tactical officer, and the crew of the UES Dauntless are ready for immediate deployment." The vote was close, 7-5 in favor of intervention. As Reed left the chamber, she contacted Mason immediately. "Prepare your fleet," she ordered. "Humanity is about to introduce itself to the galaxy." In orbit above Earth, 20 warships began powering up their engines. Humanity's first interstellar rescue mission was about to begin. Commander Mason walked through the busy launch bay of the UES Dauntless. Crew members rushed around him, loading supplies and making final checks. In just 6 hours, they had prepared 20 warships for immediate departure. It was the fastest deployment in the history of Earth's fleet. "Commander," called a voice behind him. Mason turned to see Dr. Ross, head of the science division, hurrying toward him with a tablet in hand. "Doctor, what have you found?" Mason asked. Dr. Ross pushed her glasses up her nose. "We've decoded more information from the Vorn signal. You need to see this." She held up the tablet. It showed strange, shifting images of what looked like living ships, vessels that seemed to pulse and move like animals rather than machines. "The Nexus Horde," Dr. Ross explained. "They're not like anything we've encountered before. Their ships are partly organic, grown rather than built." Mason frowned. "Weaknesses. They appear sensitive to certain energy frequencies. Specifically," she smiled slightly, "the exact frequencies our plasma cannons operate on." "Lucky coincidence," Mason said, though his eyes narrowed with suspicion. "Maybe not coincidence," Dr. Ross replied. "The Vorn may have detected our weapons systems before sending their signal. They knew we could hurt the Horde." Mason nodded slowly. "So they chose us specifically." "It's possible." A voice came over the ship's speakers. "Commander Mason to the bridge. Admiral Reed has arrived." Admiral Reed stood by the main view screen when Mason entered the bridge. She turned to face him, her expression serious. "Your fleet is ready, Commander?" she asked. Mason nodded. 20 ships, fully armed and supplied. The best crews we have." Reed lowered her voice. "I won't lie to you, Mason. The Council is divided on this mission. Half of them think we're walking into a trap." "And what do you think, Admiral?" Reed looked out at the stars visible through the view screen. "I think humanity has been alone for too long. Whether this is a trap or a genuine call for help, it's time we made our presence known to the galaxy." She handed him a small data chip. "These are your orders. Respond to the distress signal. Assist the Vorn if their situation is as described. But your primary mission is to assess the threat this Nexus Horde poses to Earth." "And if they are a threat?" Mason asked. Reed's eyes hardened. "Then you are authorized to take all necessary action." 2 hours later, Mason addressed the assembled crew on the main deck. Hundreds of men and women stood in formation, faces serious as they awaited his words. "Today we embark on the most important mission in human history," Mason began. "We are the first Earth fleet to respond to an alien distress call, the first to engage in combat beyond our solar system." He paced slowly before them. "The Vorn face extinction. We don't know them. They're strangers to us, but they've asked for our help, and humanity has always valued courage and compassion." A murmur of agreement passed through the crowd. "The Nexus Horde destroys entire civilizations. Dr. Ross's team believes they consume worlds, using the biological materials of conquered species to enhance themselves. If they defeat the Vorn, Earth could be next." Mason stopped pacing and faced his crew directly. "I won't promise this will be easy. I can't promise we'll all return. But I do promise this. Today we show the galaxy what humans are capable of." The crew erupted in cheers. Later, alone in his quarters, Mason studied the tactical displays showing their planned approach to Vorn space. Lieutenant Park, his second in command, entered with the final readiness reports. "All ships report ready, sir," Park said. "The fleet can depart on your command." Mason nodded. "And the new hyperspace calculations?" "Confirmed. We'll arrive at the coordinates in 47 hours. Mason stood and stared at the star map, at the small blinking light that marked their destination. So far from Earth, so far from any help if things went wrong. "Send the order," he said firmly. "We launch in 30 minutes." As Park left, Mason took one last look around his quarters. He wondered if he would ever see Earth again. But doubt was a luxury a commander couldn't afford. The fate of 2 species now rested on his shoulders. Outside the viewport, the stars waited. The bridge of the UES Dauntless fell silent as the fleet exited hyperspace. On the main view screen, a scene of terrible beauty appeared. A ringed planet hung in space, its blue-green surface marred by dark patches that might have been fires or worse. Around it, thousands of pieces of debris formed a cloud of destruction, the remains of countless ships. Sensors report heavy combat in Sector 2. Lieutenant Park announced, her voice tight. Multiple vessels engaging a space station in orbit around the planet. Commander Mason leaned forward in his chair. Show me. The view screen shifted. A massive space station came into view, clearly damaged but still fighting. Around it swarmed strange ships that pulsed with an eerie purple light. They moved in ways that seemed wrong somehow. Not like machines, but like hunting animals. The Nexus Horde, Mason said quietly. Dr. Ross stepped closer to the screen. Those ships are definitely biomechanical. They're growing and changing even as we watch. Are they aware of our presence? Mason asked. Not yet, replied the tactical officer. They seem fully focused on the Vorn station. Mason nodded. Good. Let's use that advantage. Open a channel to the Vorn station, tight beam communication only. After a moment of static, the view screen changed to show an alien face. The Vorn commander had silver skin, large eyes without pupils, and a slender neck. He blinked rapidly at the sight of humans. This is Commander Mason of the United Earth Fleet. We receive your distress call. The alien stared in what might have been shock. Deathworlders, he said in a voice that sounded like wind through leaves. You actually came. Commander Trell, I presume? Mason asked. Yes, I am Trell. The alien commander seemed to recover from his surprise. Your arrival is unexpected. Most species avoid the Nexus Horde. Many ignored our call. We're not most species, Mason replied. We need tactical information about the Horde fleet if we're going to help you. Trell nodded and began sending data to the human ships. Their main weakness is their connection to each other. They function as parts of a whole, and their outer hulls are vulnerable to certain energy weapons. Dr. Ross studied the incoming data. Commander, their ships are indeed vulnerable to our plasma cannon frequencies. It's almost as if they were designed that way. Mason finished for her. Trell, did you know our weapons would be effective against the Horde? The alien hesitated. We suspected. We have monitored your test flights near your home system. Your technology seemed compatible with our needs. Mason exchanged glances with his officers, so they had been chosen deliberately. Not just any rescuers, but specifically humans. Your honesty is appreciated, Mason said. Now let's discuss how to break that blockade. From his command post on the Vorn station, Trell watched in amazement as the human fleet moved into attack formation. The Vorn had studied humans from afar for years, classifying them as dangerous Deathworlders. Beings from a planet so harsh that it produced unnaturally strong, aggressive life forms. What the data hadn't conveyed was their speed of decision. From arrival to attack plan had taken the humans less than 20 minutes. A Vorn council would have debated for days. They moved strangely, observed Marn, watching the human ships approach the Horde. No species attacks the Horde directly. That is why we called them, Trell replied. The Deathworlders do what others fear to do. On his screen, the human vessels split into 3 attack groups. Instead of staying safely at range, they drove straight toward the heart of the Horde fleet, weapons charging. They will be destroyed, Marn whispered. Trell wasn't so sure. The humans moved with a confidence that seemed either insane or brilliant. As he watched, the first plasma shots fired from the human ships, cutting through Horde vessels with surprising effectiveness. Perhaps, Trell thought, the myths about Deathworlders were true after all. And perhaps this was the day the Vorn would finally see the Horde defeated. Prepare evacuation ships, Trell ordered, and open a direct line to Commander Mason's vessel. I will coordinate with him personally. The battle for survival had begun. Lieutenant Davis gripped the controls of her fighter as it shot from the launch bay of the Dauntless. 5 more fighters followed close behind, forming Arrow Squadron. "Stay tight," she ordered over the comm. "We're going straight through their line." On her tactical display, the strange ships of the Nexus Horde moved in patterns that no human fleet would use. They didn't protect their flanks. They didn't guard their command ships. They moved like parts of one giant organism rather than individual vessels. "There's a gap between those 2 larger ships," Davis said. "That's our way in. Target what looks like command nodes, those purple glowing sections." Her squadron acknowledged and followed as she pushed her fighter to full speed. The gap between the Horde ships was narrow, too narrow for most pilots to attempt. But Davis hadn't become the fleet's top pilot by playing it safe. 3 seconds to entry point, she announced. Weapons hot. The fighters screamed through the gap in the Horde formation, plasma cannons firing. The first shots hit their targets perfectly, causing several Horde ships to convulse like wounded animals. Strange, glowing fluid leaked into space where their hulls were breached. "It's working," shouted Pilot Thompson. "They're not even returning fire." "Don't get cocky," Davis warned. "They're just surprised. That won't last." She was right. As Arrow Squadron curved around for a second attack run, the Horde ships began to move differently, closing gaps and focusing weapons on the human fighters. "Evasive maneuvers," Davis ordered. "Back to the Dauntless. We've made our point." On the bridge of the Dauntless, Commander Mason watched as the fighter squadron punched through the Horde formation and returned safely. Beside him stood Commander Trell, who had transported over from the Vorn station to coordinate the battle. "Your pilots flew directly into the danger zone," Trell said, his large eyes blinking rapidly. "No Vorn would attempt such a maneuver." Mason nodded. "Humans evolved as pursuit predators, Commander. Risk calculation is in our DNA." Trell seemed to consider this fascinating and concerning. On the main view screen, more human ships engaged the Horde. The initial surprise attack had created confusion in the enemy fleet. Several Vorn evacuation ships were already slipping through the temporary gaps, escaping toward safe coordinates. "Lieutenant Park," Mason called. "Status report." "All ships reporting successful first strikes, sir," Park replied. "Minimal damage to our fleet. The Horde seems disorganized, but they're beginning to adapt." Mason turned to Trell. "Your people are evacuating. How many can get out?" "Perhaps 1/3 of our remaining population," Trell said quietly. "But our knowledge, our scientific database, that is what truly matters. If it falls to the Horde, they will use it against all life in the galaxy." Mason's expression hardened. "Then we make sure they don't get it." From his command ship at the rear of the Horde fleet, the entity known as the Overseer observed the battle with growing interest. The unexpected arrival of new ships had temporarily disrupted the conquest pattern. These ships moved, strangely, unpredictably. The Overseer sent its awareness into the collective mind of the Horde, feeling the confusion as its ships tried to adapt to the new threat. Several nodes had been destroyed by precise attacks that somehow knew exactly where to strike. This was not Vorn behavior. The Vorn were methodical, predictable. These new arrivals were different. They took risks. They moved into spaces too narrow for safety. They attacked when retreat would be logical. The Overseer had conquered 12 species during its long existence. Each was added to the collective, their biological and technological advantages absorbed. But it had never encountered beings like these. A decision formed in the Overseer's multiple minds. These new creatures would make an excellent addition to the Horde, perhaps the most valuable addition yet. But first, they needed to be tested, to be understood. Throughout the fleet, the Horde ships began to move with new purpose. The initial confusion faded as the collective mind focused on a single goal: capture these strange new beings and learn their secrets. The real battle was about to begin. The bridge of the UES Dauntless shook violently. Commander Mason grabbed the edge of the tactical display to keep his balance as warning lights flashed across the room. "Direct hit on our lower shields," Lieutenant Park reported. "Shield strength down to 40%. Mason's jaw tightened. The initial advantage of surprise was gone. Now the Horde fought back with terrifying efficiency, as if the entire fleet had suddenly awakened to the threat. "Status of the fleet," he demanded. Park's face paled as she checked the reports. "The Intrepid and Valiant are gone, sir. The Phoenix is heavily damaged. Captain Reynolds reports they've lost engines." A third explosion rocked the ship. On the view screen, Mason watched as a fourth vessel, the Sentinel, broke apart under concentrated fire from 5 Horde ships. "Sound the retreat," Mason ordered. "All ships fall back to defensive position Alpha near the moon. We need to regroup." As the human fleet pulled back, the Horde pressed forward. Their ships no longer seemed disorganized. They moved with purpose, cutting off escape routes and focusing fire on damaged vessels. Commander Trell watched from beside Mason, his silver skin now pale gray with what might have been fear. "They've adapted to your tactics already," he said quietly. "The collective mind learns quickly." Mason turned to him. "Collective mind? You didn't mention they operate as a hive." Trell's large eyes blinked rapidly. "I thought your scientists had determined this from the data we sent. The Horde is controlled by central nodes, physical manifestations of their governing intelligence. And you're only telling us this now." Mason's voice was sharp with anger. "There was no time," Trell replied. "And the knowledge would not have changed your initial attack plan." Mason was about to respond when Park interrupted. "Sir, Admiral Reed is here. 5 more ships just exited hyperspace at our rear position." The bridge crew cheered as the reinforcement vessels moved into formation with the retreating fleet. The Admiral's flagship, the UES Resolute, took point position. "Open a channel to Admiral Reed," Mason ordered. Reed's face appeared on the screen. "Looks like we arrived just in time, Commander. The situation is worse than we expected." "Admiral," Mason reported, "we've lost 3 ships, and the Horde is adapting to our tactics rapidly." "Then we'll need a new approach," Reed replied. "Fall back to the moon as planned. We'll cover your retreat." 20 minutes later, the combined human fleet held a defensive position in the shadow of the planet's largest moon. The Horde ships surrounded them, seemingly content to maintain the blockade while occasional shots tested the human defenses. In the Dauntless's tactical room, Mason, Reed, Trell, and the ship captains gathered around a holographic display of the battlefield. "The Horde ships are controlled by these," Trell explained, highlighting 3 larger vessels near the back of the enemy formation. "Primary control nodes. They contain the governing intelligence that directs the rest. Destroy them, and the remaining ships will be temporarily disoriented." "How temporarily?" asked Reed. "Perhaps 15 of your minutes," Trell replied. "Not long, but enough time to strike a decisive blow." Mason studied the display. "The nodes are well protected. A direct assault would be suicide." "Not if they don't see us coming," said a voice from the back of the room. Lieutenant Evans stepped forward. "We captured a damaged Horde ship during our retreat. It's small, but its systems are still partly functional." "You're suggesting we use it as a Trojan horse," Reed said, understanding immediately. Evans nodded. "A small team could pilot it into the heart of their formation. They wouldn't fire on one of their own ships." "It's too risky," Mason objected. "The Horde would detect any human life signs aboard." Trell raised a 4-fingered hand. "Not if foreign technology is used to mask them. We have developed shields against the Horde's scanning methods." The room fell silent as everyone considered the plan. Finally, Reed spoke. "It's our best option," she said firmly. "While the main fleet holds this defensive position, a strike team will infiltrate the Horde formation to destroy the control nodes." Mason nodded slowly. "Who will lead the strike team?" "I will," Evans volunteered without hesitation. Mason looked at his lieutenant, seeing the determination in his eyes. Very well. Choose your team. We move at 600. As the meeting broke up, Mason stood alone at the tactical display. The Horde ships waited just beyond the moon's shadow, their strange organic forms seeming to pulse with menace. Tomorrow would decide everything. The captured Horde vessel was smaller than Lieutenant Evans had hoped. Its interior glowed with an eerie purple light that seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. The walls felt warm and slightly soft to the touch, more like flesh than metal. Try not to touch anything unless necessary, warned Kell, the Vorn engineer who joined the strike team. The ship is semi-alive and may sense unfamiliar contact. Evans nodded, leading his team through the narrow passages. 4 human soldiers and 2 Vorn specialists made up the strike force. Each carried weapons specially calibrated to damage the Horde's control nodes. Life sign masking technology activated, Kell announced, activating a small device. As far as the Horde can detect, this ship contains only their own kind. Evans took his position at what passed for the ship's control center. Everyone ready. Once we launch, there's no turning back. The team acknowledged, faces serious in the strange light. Launching in 3, 2, 1. Evans guided the vessel away from the Dauntless and toward the waiting Horde fleet. On the bridge of the Dauntless, Commander Mason watched the small blip that represented the strike team's ship move slowly toward the enemy formation. Beside him, Admiral Reed and Commander Trell observed in tense silence. The main fleet is ready to engage on your order, Lieutenant Park reported. All weapons charged and targeting the forward Horde units. Mason nodded. We wait for Evans' signal. The moment they strike the first control node, we launch everything we have. Trell's large eyes focused on the tactical display. Your lieutenant's chances of success are very low, he said quietly. The Overseer is intelligent. It may detect deception. Evans knows the risks, Reed replied. All his team does, but humans have a long history of succeeding at impossible missions. The strike team's ship slipped deeper into the Horde formation. Through the viewport, Evans could see dozens of the strange organic vessels surrounding them. None showed any sign of suspicion. First control node visible at 2 o'clock, reported Sergeant Willis, pointing to a larger ship with multiple pulsing purple sections. Range, 2 kilometers. Evans guided their vessel closer, heart pounding. The plan was simple but dangerous. Get close to each of the 3 control nodes, fire the specially modified torpedoes, then escape during the confusion. Weapons range in 30 seconds, Evans said. Prepare first torpedo. Suddenly, their ship shuddered. A strange vibration ran through the floor and walls. They're scanning us, Kell warned, checking his equipment. The masking technology is holding, but just barely. We can't wait, Evans decided. Target the first node and fire now. Willis launched the torpedo. It streaked toward the control node, leaving a bright trail through space. Seconds later, it struck home. The node ship convulsed, sections of it darkening as systems failed. Direct hit, Willis shouted. Node is damaged, but not destroyed. The Horde knows we're here now, Evans said grimly. Full speed to the second node. This just got a lot harder. On the Dauntless, alarms sounded as the tactical display showed sudden movement throughout the Horde fleet. They're responding to the attack, Park reported. Strike team has damaged 1 node, but their cover is blown. Mason didn't hesitate. Launch the attack. All ships, full offensive pattern. Target the Horde vessels nearest to Evans' team and clear them a path to the second node. The human fleet surged forward from behind the moon's shadow, weapons firing in unison. The battle erupted across the entire sector as the Horde ships turned to meet this new threat. Evans' team is approaching the second node, Park announced, but they're taking heavy fire. On the display, Mason watched as several Horde ships converged on the strike team's position. Divert squadrons 2 and 3 to provide cover, he ordered. Reed stepped forward. I'm returning to the Resolute. We'll lead a direct assault on the third node to divide their attention. As Reed departed, Mason turned back to the view screen. The battle had become a chaotic storm of weapons fire and maneuvering ships. In the midst of it all, the tiny blip of Evans' vessel continued its desperate mission. "Come on, Evans," Mason whispered. "Make it count." The captured Horde ship shuddered as another blast struck its hull. Inside, Lieutenant Evans struggled to maintain control as warning lights flashed across the makeshift control panel. "Status of the second node," he demanded. Sergeant Willis checked the targeting system. "Direct hit. Second node is down." The team cheered, but their celebration was cut short as the ship rocked violently again. A section of the organic wall tore open, exposing wires and strange, pulsing tubes. "Hull breach in Section 3, reported Corporal Taylor. "We're losing power to the engines." Evans studied the tactical display. The third and final control node was heavily protected now. Dozens of Horde ships formed a defensive ring around it, making approach impossible. "We need a new plan," Evans said grimly. "We can't reach the third node this way." Kell, the Vorn engineer, moved closer. "There is one option," he said quietly. "The ship's core is unstable after the damage we've taken. If overloaded, it would create an explosion large enough to destroy anything nearby," Evans finished. He understood immediately what Kell was suggesting. The lieutenant looked at his team. "I need you all to get to the escape pod. I'll pilot the ship toward the third node and overload the core." "Sir, that's suicide," Willis protested. "That's an order, Sergeant." Evans' voice was firm. "The rest of the fleet is counting on us. The Vorn are counting on us." After a moment of silence, Willis nodded. "It's been an honor, sir." As the team moved toward the escape pod, Evans set a direct course for the third node. He opened a channel to the Dauntless. "Commander Mason, this is Evans. Second node destroyed. Team is evacuating. I'm taking the ship directly into the third node." Mason's voice came back, understanding the unspoken message. "Acknowledged, Lieutenant. Your service will be remembered." Evans pushed the damaged ship to its limits, accelerating toward the heavily guarded node. Horde vessels fired continuously, further damaging the ship but failing to stop its advance. For Earth, Evans whispered as he activated the core overload sequence and locked the controls. The explosion lit up space like a new star being born. On the bridge of the Dauntless, Mason watched as the tactical display showed the third node vanishing in a massive explosion. Throughout the Horde fleet, ships suddenly stopped moving in coordinated patterns. Some drifted aimlessly, others fired randomly into space. "All control nodes destroyed," Lieutenant Park announced, her voice tight with emotion. "The Horde ships are disoriented, just as Commander Trell predicted." Mason didn't waste a moment. "All vessels, full attack. Target the largest remaining Horde ships first." The combined human fleet surged forward, joined by the remaining Vorn vessels. They tore through the confused Horde ships with ruthless efficiency. Without their central intelligence to guide them, the once fearsome enemy fell into chaos. Admiral Reed's voice came over the comm. "The escape pod from Evans' ship has been recovered." 4 of the team made it out. A small victory in the midst of sacrifice, Mason thought. 3 days later, the battle was over. The Horde fleet had been completely destroyed, though at significant cost. 5 human ships had been lost, with hundreds of crew members killed. In the Dauntless's main conference room, Commander Trell formally faced Admiral Reed and Commander Mason. "The Vorn Collective owes humanity a debt that can never be repaid," Trell said, bowing deeply. "You saved not just our remaining people, but our knowledge and history." Reed nodded. "Both our species have paid a heavy price, which is why I propose a formal alliance." Trell continued. "The Vorn possess advanced technologies, but lack the aggressive survival instinct that makes humans so formidable. Together, we would be stronger than either species alone." Mason and Reed exchanged glances. This was beyond their authority to decide, but they could make a recommendation to Earth's leadership. "We'll bring your proposal back to Earth," Reed said. I believe it will be well received." Later, Mason stood at the viewport, watching as repairs continued on the damaged fleet. A memorial service was scheduled for tomorrow, honoring those who had fallen, humans and Vorn alike. Lieutenant Park joined him. "Sir, we're receiving messages from other alien civilizations, some congratulating us, others concerned about our capabilities." Mason smiled slightly. Humanity's age of isolation is over. For better or worse, the galaxy now knows about the Deathworlders from Earth. And somewhere out among the stars, other species were watching, wondering what would happen now that humans had arrived on the galactic stage. The message came at 300 hours Earth Standard Time. It crackled through the speakers of Earth's Deep Space Monitoring Station, breaking the quiet of the night shift. Commander Elena Reeves rubbed her tired eyes and leaned forward. She had been about to end her shift when the encrypted signal lit up her console. The message was weak, distorted by distance and interference, but unmistakably sent on the emergency frequency reserved for their allies, the Viridian Confederacy. "This is Commander Reeves. I'm receiving your transmission. Please identify." Static filled the speakers, then a voice broke through. It spoke in the musical tones of the Viridian language, automatically translated by the station's computers. "Earth, help us. Under attack. Unknown enemy. Colonies falling." Elena's heart raced as she boosted the signal strength. "This is Earth. We need more information. What kind of attack? How many ships? What are your casualties?" More static then. "They drain our power. Weapons useless. Galactic Council refuses aid. Say too dangerous." The message cleared for a moment, and Elena heard desperation in the alien voice. "Send your warriors. Only Deathworlders can survive what comes." Then silence. Elena immediately contacted General Warren, head of the United Earth Defense Force. Within an hour, she stood in the crisis room at UEDF headquarters, surrounded by Earth's top military leaders. "Play it again," ordered General Warren, his weathered face grim in the low light. The room listened as the message echoed through the speakers. When it ended, silence fell. Admiral Blake, commander of Earth's space fleet, spoke first. "The Viridians have been our strongest allies since first contact. They vouched for us to the Galactic Council when other species wanted us quarantined." "Because we're Deathworlders," said Colonel Martinez, her voice bitter. "They fear us for evolving on a world that would kill most of them in minutes." General Warren nodded. "And now they need those same qualities they feared." He pulled up a star map showing the distance to Viridian space. "Even at maximum FTL, it would take our fleet 3 weeks to reach them." "If we go," said Admiral Blake carefully, "this would be our first military action beyond our solar system. We don't know what we're facing." Elena stepped forward. "Sir, permission to speak freely?" General Warren nodded. "The Viridians helped us when we needed technologies to clean our oceans and repair our atmosphere. They shared medical advances that saved millions of Earth lives. We owe them." The room fell quiet again. Everyone knew Earth's history before meeting the Viridians: wars, climate disasters, near extinction, and how things had changed since. "There's another factor," said Admiral Blake. "If these attackers can defeat Viridian defenses, and the Galactic Council won't help, Earth could be next." General Warren looked at each person in the room. "We're not like other species in the galaxy. We evolved on a high-gravity world with deadly radiation, extreme weather, and thousands of predators. Our bodies can endure pain that would kill most aliens. We can adapt to almost any environment." He paused. "And we never abandon our allies." The decision was unanimous. Earth would answer the call. Within 24 hours, the Deathworld response fleet was mobilized. 5 warships, led by the massive flagship UES Thermopylae, prepared to depart Earth orbit. They carried the best weapons humanity had developed, and crews trained to face the unknown. On the bridge of the Thermopylae, Captain Marcus Donovan watched Earth grow smaller on the view screen. "Captain," called the communications officer, "We're receiving a final message from Command." Donovan nodded. "Put it through." General Warren's face appeared on screen. "Captain Donovan, you carry the hopes of Earth and the survival of the Viridians. Show the galaxy what humans can do when our friends are in danger." Donovan saluted. "We won't let them down, sir." As the fleet engaged their FTL drives, blue light enveloped the ships. In a flash, they'd vanished into the depths of space, racing to answer a desperate call for help. The UES Thermopylae cut through the darkness of space, its massive engines glowing blue against the black. 4 other warships followed in formation, their hulls marked with the Earth Defense Force symbol, a globe with a shield. Captain Marcus Donovan stood on the bridge, looking at the stars streaking by on the main screen. 3 weeks in FTL travel before they would reach Viridian space. 3 weeks to prepare for whatever waited for them. "Status report," he ordered. Tactical Officer Jack Wells looked up from his station. "All systems functioning at optimal levels, Captain. The fleet maintains formation." Jack was built like most humans who served in space, strong and compact. Before joining the fleet, he had been a soldier in Earth's Arctic Division. He knew how to fight in the harshest conditions. "Dr. O'Keefer wants to brief you on what we know about the attackers," said Jack. Donovan nodded. "Tell her to meet me in the war room. And find Reed. I want our diplomatic expert there too." In the war room, Dr. Amara Okafor had set up screens showing all the data they had received from the Viridians. "It isn't much," she admitted as Donovan, and Thomas Reed entered. Reed, the ship's diplomatic liaison, studied the screens. "The Viridians are usually so thorough with their information. This tells us how desperate the situation must be." Dr. Okafor pointed to an image of a dark ship. "We only have this one partial scan of an enemy vessel. Notice how it absorbs light rather than reflects it." "Like it's drinking in the energy," murmured Donovan. "Exactly," said Dr. Okafor. "And that matches what we heard in the distress call, that they drain power." "But why call for humans specifically?" asked Reed. "The galaxy has many spacefaring species." The room fell silent as they considered this question. It was Jack who answered as he joined them. "Because we're different," he said. "Remember when humans first entered galactic society 50 years ago?" Donovan smiled without humor. "How could we forget? Most alien species were terrified of us." Reed nodded. "They classified Earth as a death world, a planet so dangerous that most species would die there within hours. High gravity, intense radiation, extreme temperature variations, thousands of predators, and poisonous plants," listed Dr. Okafor, "all the things that shaped human evolution." "And then there's our technology," added Jack. "We developed it in isolation, following different paths than standard galactic tech." A message alert sounded. Donovan activated the screen to see a transmission coming in from Viridian space. The image was blurry, filled with static. "Fleet approaching our home system," came a broken voice. "Our shields fail when they—" The message cut off, then returned. "Standard weapons useless. They use energy-draining fields that—" More static. Then, clearer. "Only projectile weapons and physical attacks seem effective." The transmission ended. The room was quiet again. "Projectile weapons," repeated Jack. "Like our railguns and kinetic missiles. Not the energy weapons most galactic civilizations use." Donovan turned to his officers. "They called us because we're built differently, and we fight differently. Now we have 3 weeks to prepare." He activated the ship's communication system. "Attention all personnel. This is Captain Donovan. We've received new information about the enemy we will face. Starting immediately, all crew will participate in combat training. Security teams will focus on physical combat and projectile weapons." Dr. Okafor was already working at a terminal. "I'll analyze what little data we have on these attackers. If they feed on energy, they must have some biological basis for that ability. Everything has a weakness." Reed nodded. "I'll prepare first contact protocols in case we can communicate with them. And I'll make sure our weapons are ready," said Jack. If they expect easy prey, they'll be surprised to meet predators instead. Donovan looked at his team. Humans have been seen as dangerous by the galactic community, feared for their resilience, strength, and capacity for violence. Now those same traits might be the only hope for their allies. 3 weeks, he said. Let's make them count. The fleet continued its journey through the stars, carrying Earth's answer to a desperate call. We are coming. The human fleet dropped out of FTL at the edge of Viridian space. The bridge of the UES Thermopylae fell silent as the main screen showed what waited for them. Captain Donovan stood from his command chair. My God. Where there should have been a thriving colony world with orbital stations and ships, there was mostly wreckage. Parts of the planet's surface glowed red from fires that were visible even from space. Broken ships floated like dead leaves on a pond. Life signs? Donovan asked. Detecting Viridian survivors on the planet, reported Dr. Okafor from her station. Several thousand in the southern continent, in underground shelters, and weak signals from a damaged space station. Any sign of the attackers? Jack Wells checked his tactical screens. Nothing immediate, Captain. But there are strange energy readings from the far side of the planet's moon. They could be hiding, waiting, said Donovan. Send rescue shuttles to the space station. We need information. Jack, take a security team. Full combat gear. Within an hour, Jack and his team returned with 30 Viridian survivors. Most were injured, their blue-tinted skin pale from trauma. Among them was a Viridian official wearing a silver collar marking her as an ambassador. In the ship's medical bay, she introduced herself as Ambassador Leary. Despite her injuries, she stood tall, her 4 arms held in the formal Viridian greeting position. We feared you would not come, she said. The Galactic Council voted against sending help. They fear these attackers too much. We came as soon as we received your call, said Donovan. Tell us what we're facing. Leary's large, silver eyes closed briefly in what humans had learned was a Viridian expression of pain. They call themselves the Void Dominion. They come from the dark places between stars. They evolved where there is no light, no heat. They feed on energy directly. Dr. Okafor moved closer. What kind of energy? All kinds. Their ships can drain power from our systems. Their weapons pull the heat from our bodies. Many of my people froze to death while standing in full sunlight. Jack exchanged looks with Donovan. Humans had evolved on a planet with extreme temperature variations. They could survive in conditions much colder than most galactic species. How do they look? Asked Donovan. Like living shadows, said Leary. Tall, thin, with 6 limbs. They wear no protection because they need none. What would kill us makes them stronger. Standard galactic weapons didn't work against them, asked Jack. Energy weapons made them stronger. Physical attacks worked sometimes, but Leary hesitated. We Viridians are not built for such combat. We evolved on a peaceful world. Unlike humans, who evolved fighting for survival every day, thought Donovan. Captain, interrupted the communications officer over the speakers. We're detecting ships approaching from behind the moon. 5 vessels, unknown configuration. Battle stations, ordered Donovan. Ambassador, please stay here where it's safe. On the bridge, the tactical screen showed 5 black ships approaching. They absorbed the light around them, making them hard to track. They're heading for the Viridian settlement on the surface, reported Jack. Deploy the ground teams to protect the settlement, ordered Donovan, and prepare to engage the enemy ships. 6 shuttles launched from the Thermopylae, each carrying 20 human soldiers in environmental combat suits. These suits, designed for Earth's harshest environments, could withstand extreme cold and had built-in weapons. The black ships detected the human shuttles, and 2 broke off to intercept. They fired strange weapons that emitted no light but caused the temperature around the shuttles to plummet. They're trying to freeze us, reported the shuttle commander. Suits are holding. Temperature dropping but still in survivable range. Inside their suits, the human soldiers felt the cold but remained functional. They had trained in Antarctica and the Siberian wastes. This was uncomfortable, but not deadly. The shuttles landed near the Viridian settlement. As the human soldiers deployed, they saw the enemy for the first time. Tall black figures moving with inhuman grace. And then the first battle between humans and the Void Dominion began. Ambassador Leary stood in the observation room of the UES Thermopylae, watching the video feed from the planet's surface. Her 4 hands trembled as she saw human soldiers engaging the Void Dominion forces in direct combat. "They should be dead," she whispered. "The cold weapons of the Dominion kill most species in seconds." Dr. Okafor stood beside her. Humans evolved on a planet with extreme seasons. Some regions of Earth dropped to temperatures that would freeze your blood solid. Our bodies adapted. On the screen, a human soldier took a direct hit from a Dominion weapon. Frost formed instantly on his combat suit, but he kept moving, raised his rifle, and fired back. The projectiles tore through the shadowy body of the alien. "And your weapons," said Leary. "They actually work." "Kinetic energy," explained Dr. Okafor. "Bullets, explosives, physical force. The Dominion can absorb energy like heat and electricity, but they can't stop a physical object moving at high speed." In the command center below the observation room, Captain Donovan and Jack Wells directed the battle. Reports came in from all teams on the ground. "Team 3 has secured the Viridian shelter," reported a soldier. 57 survivors, mostly children. Team 1 encountering heavy resistance at the colony center. 2 wounded, none dead. Donovan turned to Jack. "Have the engineers made progress protecting our systems?" Jack nodded. "They're adapting our technology to resist the Dominion's energy drain. Earth systems use different principles than standard galactic tech. Our ships can operate at much lower power levels if needed. Another advantage of evolving on a death world," said Donovan. "We had to build our technology to survive harsh conditions." Dr. Okafor entered the command center with Ambassador Leary. "Captain, I've made a discovery," said Dr. Okafor. "The Dominion evolved in darkness and cold. Their bodies are hypersensitive to certain light frequencies and heat. That's why they wear those protective coverings. Like how deep-sea creatures on Earth can't handle sunlight," said Jack. "Exactly," said Dr. Okafor. "And humans can not only tolerate these frequencies but generate them. Our normal body temperature is like a furnace to them." "Could we use this against them?" asked Donovan. "Yes, I can modify our weapons to emit these frequencies, and our environmental suits could be adjusted to radiate heat in ways that would disorient them." Leary looked at the humans with new understanding. "Now I see why our elders called for you specifically. Your nature as Deathworlders gives you strengths we never imagined." "We've spent our entire history adapting to harsh conditions," said Donovan. "Fighting predators, surviving disasters, enduring pain. What other species see as our savagery is really our strength." Team 6 reports the Dominion ships are retreating, called a communications officer. On the main screen, they watched as the black ships pulled away from the planet, moving back behind the moon. "They're regrouping," said Jack. "This was just a test, to see what we can do. And now they know we can hurt them," said Donovan. He turned to his officers, his face determined. "We need a new strategy. Defending isn't enough. We need to take the fight to them." The command center fell silent. Even Jack looked surprised. "Attack them directly?" asked Jack. "We don't know how many ships they have. We know they're hurting our allies, and we'll keep attacking until stopped," said Donovan. "Waiting for them to come back puts the Viridians at risk." He pulled up a star map on the main screen. "Dr. Okafor's discovery gives us an advantage. We can track their ships to their staging area and strike first." Ambassador Leary stepped forward. "Captain, such aggression is not how the Galactic Council handles threats." "With respect, Ambassador," said Donovan, "that may be why the Council is failing to protect its members. Humans learned long ago that sometimes the best defense is a strong offense." He looked at his officers. "Prepare a strike force. We're taking the fight to the Dominion." Jack nodded. a slow smile spreading across his face. "Yes, sir. Time to show them what happens when you threaten a Deathworlders' friends." The UES Thermopylae led 2 other human warships through the darkness of space. They had tracked the Void Dominion ships to their staging area, a dead star system with a massive command vessel orbiting a frozen planet. 15 minutes until we're in range," reported Jack Wells from the tactical station. Captain Donovan nodded. "Status of the modified weapons." "Dr. Okafor's light-frequency modifications are complete," said Jack. "All ships report ready." Donovan turned to the communications station. "Any response from the Dominion to our message?" "No, sir," replied Thomas Reed. "They've ignored our attempts to communicate. The plan was simple but dangerous. The human ships would attack the Dominion command vessel directly, using weapons modified to emit the light frequencies that Dr. Okafor had discovered were harmful to the aliens. Meanwhile, Jack would lead a boarding party to capture the ship's control center. 5 minutes to engagement range," announced Jack. Donovan opened the ship-wide communication channel. "All personnel, battle stations, boarding teams to launch bays." In the main launch bay, Jack checked his team's equipment one last time. 20 soldiers in environmental suits modified to radiate heat at frequencies the Dominion found painful. They carried projectile weapons, rifles that fired physical bullets rather than energy beams. "Remember," Jack told his team, "these aliens evolved in cold and darkness. Our bodies feel like fire to them. Use that." The countdown reached 0. The human ships burst from FTL travel directly in front of the Dominion command vessel. They fired immediately, their weapons flashing with specially calibrated light. The massive black Dominion ship seemed to shudder. Where the light hit, its dark surface bubbled and steamed. "Direct hits," reported the weapons officer. "Their shields are failing." "Launch boarding shuttles," ordered Donovan. 2 small craft shot from the Thermopylae's launch bay, carrying Jack and his team. They dodged energy weapons from the Dominion ship, beams that tried to drain their power and freeze their systems. "They expected us to use standard galactic technology," said Donovan to Reed. "But human ships can operate on backup systems that don't rely on the same energy principles." The boarding shuttles reached the Dominion vessel and attached to its hull. Jack's team cut through using thermal tools. "We're in," Jack reported over the comm, moving toward the control center. Inside the alien ship, the human soldiers moved through dark corridors where the temperature was well below freezing. Their suits protected them from the cold, and the heat they radiated made the shadowy aliens back away. "They're not used to fighting at close range," Jack told his team as they pushed forward. "Use that advantage." When Dominion troops tried to stop them, the humans fought with a ferocity that shocked the aliens. Humans had evolved as pursuit predators on Earth, capable of running prey to exhaustion, enduring pain and injuries that would stop other species. The aliens expected the humans to retreat when wounded. Instead, injured soldiers kept fighting, driven by something the Dominion couldn't understand: the human refusal to abandon their mission or their comrades. Outside, Captain Donovan directed the ship-to-ship battle with tactics from Earth's naval history. The Dominion ships moved in predictable patterns, following standard galactic strategies, but human ships darted in unexpected ways, confusing the alien targeting systems. "Their algorithms can't predict our movements," Donovan told his bridge crew. "Another advantage of our independent evolution." Jack's team reached the control center of the Dominion vessel. They faced the Dominion commanders, tall, shadowy figures that seemed to absorb the light around them. "For beings that feed on energy, they don't like our kind of energy," Jack said as the aliens backed away from the humans' heat signatures. The fight was brief. The Dominion commanders, unused to physical combat, surrendered quickly when faced with the human boarding party. "Control center secured," Jack reported to Donovan. "But Captain, we've found something concerning. Their data shows a much larger invasion force heading toward the main Viridian homeworld." Donovan's face hardened. "Then we need to get there first. Prepare to jump to FTL as soon as you're back aboard." The human counterattack had succeeded, But a greater challenge awaited them. The human fleet raced through space, pushing their FTL engines to maximum power. They had to reach the Viridian homeworld before the Dominion's main invasion force. ETA 12 hours, reported the navigation officer. Captain Donovan nodded. Send a message to the Viridian Defense Command. Warn them about the coming attack. On the bridge of the UES Thermopylae, the crew worked with focused intensity. They had won their first battle against the Void Dominion, but the real test was still to come. Thomas Reed approached Donovan. Captain, I've been communicating with the Dominion prisoners. Some of their ships joined the invasion unwillingly. They were forced to serve. Can they be convinced to switch sides? Asked Donovan. Possibly. I sent coded messages to certain Dominion ships, explaining that we offer protection to any who defect. Donovan nodded. Good work. We need every advantage we can get. The human fleet arrived at the Viridian homeworld ahead of the Dominion Armada. The planet glowed blue-green in space, surrounded by orbital cities and defense platforms. Ambassador Leary contacted the Viridian High Council immediately. The humans have discovered a large Dominion attack force approaching our world. They have come to help us prepare. The Viridian leaders were skeptical. How can so few ships defend against an armada? Asked one council member. These are humans, said Leary. Deathworlders. They have already defeated Dominion forces once. When the fleet docked at the main orbital station, Jack Wells led teams of human soldiers to train Viridian fighters. Your energy weapons won't work against them, Jack explained to a group of blue-skinned Viridian officers, but we can modify your equipment to use physical projectiles and the light frequencies they're vulnerable to. The Viridians learned quickly. Though physically weaker than humans, they were intelligent and adaptable. They shared their advanced shield technology, which human engineers modified to resist the Dominion's energy-draining weapons. Dr. Okafor worked with Viridian scientists to develop more effective weapons. The Dominion evolved in darkness between stars, she explained. Certain frequencies of light are like acid to them. We can use that. Captain Donovan met with the Viridian Defense Command to plan their strategy. We need to protect your civilian centers at all costs, he said. The human ships will take the front position to absorb the first attack. The Viridian commander looked concerned. That will place your ships in the greatest danger. We can endure more damage than your vessels, said Donovan. Humans build for survival in harsh conditions. It's who we are. Space sensors detected the approach of the Dominion fleet, over 30 black ships that absorbed light around them. They're here, announced Jack. The battle began as the Dominion ships fired their energy-draining weapons. The modified shields on the human and Viridian vessels held, but just barely. Human ships darted forward, firing their modified weapons. Where they hit, the black surfaces of the Dominion vessels burned with painful light. But there were too many enemy ships. Alarms blared on the Thermopylae as multiple hits drained their power reserves. Main engines down to 40%, reported the engineering officer. Shields failing on decks 7 through 12. A massive blast rocked the ship. Donovan was thrown from his chair as smoke filled the bridge. Direct hit to our power core, called the damage control officer. Critical systems failing. Donovan pulled himself up, blood running from a cut on his forehead. He looked at the tactical display. The Dominion fleet was breaking through their lines, heading for the planet. Evacuate the crew, he ordered. Everyone to escape pods. Captain, questioned Jack. I'm staying, said Donovan. This ship has one more fight left. As the crew evacuated, Donovan took manual control of the Thermopylae. He directed the damaged vessel straight toward the Dominion flagship. For Earth and Viridia, he whispered as he engaged the engines for one final burn. Just as all seemed lost, new ships appeared on the sensors. Dominion vessels with their weapons firing at the main Dominion fleet. The defectors, said Reed from the last escape pod. They came. The battle above the Viridian homeworld changed when the defecting Dominion ships joined the fight. Led by Thomas Reed's communications, a full third of the invasion force turned against their former masters. The UES Thermopylae, damaged but still moving under Captain Donovan's control, crashed into the side of the Dominion flagship. The explosion lit up space like a newborn star. Jack Wells watched from an escape pod, his face grim. "Captain Donovan," he whispered. With the flagship destroyed and their forces divided, the remaining Dominion ships began to retreat. The defectors pursued them, driving them farther from Viridian space. 3 days later, the survivors gathered in the Great Hall of the Viridian capital city. Humans stood side by side with their blue-skinned allies. Ambassador Leary addressed them all. "Today we honor those who gave their lives to save our world," she said. "Especially Captain Marcus Donovan, whose final act of courage turned the tide of battle." A memorial flame burned at the center of the hall, a Viridian tradition for fallen heroes. The flame burned blue for Viridian dead, and red for the humans who had not survived. Jack Wells, now acting commander of the human forces, stood at attention beside Dr. Okafor and Thomas Reed. "Captain Donovan knew what it meant to be human," said Jack. "Not just our strength or our ability to endure, but our willingness to protect those who need help." As the ceremony ended, a message arrived from Earth. General Warren's face appeared on the main screen. "We've received your report," he said. "Captain Donovan's sacrifice will not be forgotten. What's the status of the Dominion threat?" "The defectors are helping us track down the remaining hostile forces," reported Jack. "But there's more, sir. Representatives from the Galactic Council have arrived." The screen split to show 3 alien faces, the leaders of the Galactic Council. They looked uncomfortable. "We have observed your actions," said the central figure. "When we refused to help the Viridians, we did not expect Earth to send its fleet." "Humans help their allies," said Jack simply. "That's what we do." "Yes, we see that now," said the council leader. "We also see that what we feared about your species, your strength, your resilience, your capacity for violence, are the very qualities that saved the Viridians." Ambassador Leary stepped forward. "The Council must recognize humanity's vital role in galactic security. The term Deathworlder should no longer be used as an insult, but as a mark of respect." The Council leaders looked at each other, then nodded. "We agree. Earth will be offered full membership in the Galactic Defense Coalition." 1 week later, on the repaired orbital station, Dr. Okafor met with representatives of the defected Dominion ships. Unlike their hostile counterparts, these Dominion members sought understanding. "Your people fought with honor," said the Dominion leader. "We were told that humans were savage, but we saw how you protected the weak. This is not savagery." Dr. Okafor smiled. "Humans evolved on a harsh world, but it taught us to value life precisely because it is fragile." On Earth, Commander Elena Reeves sat at her station in the Deep Space Monitoring Station. A year had passed since the Viridian distress call. The Deathworld response fleet, now expanded with new ships, had become a permanent part of Earth's defense forces. Her console lit up with an incoming message. It wasn't an emergency this time, but a formal communication from a distant star system. "To the warriors of Earth," it read, "we have heard of your defense of the Viridians. Our world faces a threat we cannot defeat alone. Would you send your Deathworlders to help us as well?" Elena smiled and opened a channel to UEDF headquarters. Earth had found its place in the galaxy, not as conquerors or threats, but as protectors. The qualities that had once made other species fear humans now made them seek human help. A new fleet was already preparing to depart Earth orbit. On their hulls, they carried a new insignia, a human hand clasped with an alien appendage, and below it the words, "Deathworlders Response Force. We answer the call."